Hello and welcome to Good Bites. My name is Dr. Ron Ehrlich and this is the first episode of this kind of episode that I'm going to be doing throughout the year. And today I wanted to talk about the situation that we face in Australia. Now, from one end of the country, from the north to the south, from the east to the west, Australia is on fire. And we are, as a country, used to bushfires. There's no argument about that. But I have lived in Australia for over 60 years. I have spoken to people who have lived in Australia for much longer than that. And the one thing we all have in common is we have never seen anything like this before. And does it come as a shock? Does it come as a surprise? No, it doesn't. Because if you go back to climate scientists warning about what will occur when our environment warms, they have been warning that we will have fires like we have never seen before. So this is not a matter of conjecture anymore. This is the reality of what we face in Australia today and what America has faced on its west coast in their last summer and what the world will face in the coming months, months and years. So let's face it, climate change has occurred from the moment humans moved out of East Africa and spread themselves across the world. We have, as a species, changed the climate. But as our species has increased, our impact on the climate is not surprisingly greater. And we are reaching, in fact, we may have already reached a tipping point. And unfortunately, our politics is not reflecting what is needed. Unfortunately, I think one of the frustrations that we find with our politicians, and this seems to be a common theme globally, is a frustration with our politicians. And I think that is because politicians, if I'm not mistaken, are elected to reflect the best interests of the community. And I think there is a growing frustration with the fact that industry has an undue influence on not just policy, but the outcomes of that policy. And that may be reflected in record profits to corporations, while arguably people's incomes have remained static, or they've been offered unlimited credit to maintain a lifestyle which is unsustainable. I've often said we are encouraged to be good consumers, but we are not encouraged to be good citizens. So I've also made a point in the podcast over the years and in my book, A Life Less Stressed, that while we may only get to vote once every 3, 4 years or 5 years, depending on which country you're in, we do get to vote every single day. And that vote is with how we spend our money. And I believe that the governments that we have today are a reflection of us as a society. We are to blame for the leaders that we have. The leaders are a reflection of us as a society. And if we are wanting to change that political story, then we have to change our own story and we have to exert our influence. And our biggest influence, just wait for the plane to pass over the top, but our biggest influence is how we spend our money. And for me personally, and I'm not going to pretend that I am the perfect consumer or that I'm not a consumer. My goodness, come into my house and you will see this is not me pontificating about what I do. This is me thinking out aloud and saying, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to become. I, as I have often said, have only been in clinical practice for 40 years and I still have much to learn. I am 64 years old and I have still much to learn. And I am open and honest to say that. I think it's also interesting to see why people are so resistant to change. This is something that has challenged me in my own practice. When you give people health advice or when you talk about diet, it's almost a religious experience for many people. And I think politics is a similar thing. I think people are resistant to change because change to them reflects a rejection of the past. And that is a very uncomfortable thing to admit. I don't believe change is a rejection of the past. I believe we have to learn from the past. We have to look at our present and project into the future. And so we have to be open to change. And the other thing I think I've observed in these last particularly few years is how polarized we've become. Now, we have always had different opinions. That is the way humans have existed for all of human existence. And it's going to exist for all of future human existence. We are never going to get everybody to agree on everything. So let's stop being frustrated about this. Let's respect each other's views. And even if those views may appear totally wrong to one person and another, let's hope that the majority views, which have the best for all of humankind involved in as an underlying theme, which have the best for the planet, to leave the planet in a better position than we've left it, rather than just be for the benefit of individuals. That there will always be that part of society which has that at its priority, that the power of the individual is paramount. That is always going to be prevailing. There's always going to be the power of institutions to preserve their control and respect. That is always going to be an overriding theme. But if we can have the holistic context, which Alan Savory has spoken of so many times, as an underlying theme to every decision that is made by companies, by governments, by individuals, then I think we will be in a better space. So, again, a plane. I'm recording this live out there in the real world, so I'm not going to pretend I'm in some studio. So, until next time, until the next good bite, until the next green bite, until the next unstressed episode, and please share with me your feedback. This is Dr. Ron Ehrlich. Be well. This podcast provides general information and discussion about medicine, health, and related subjects. The content is not intended and should not be construed as medical advice or as a substitute for care by a qualified medical practitioner. If you or any other person has a medical concern, he or she should consult with an appropriately qualified medical practitioner. Guests who speak in this podcast express their own opinions, experiences, and conclusions.